What you focus on does expand. It expands in your mind, it expands in your field, in the body of your affairs. And so our job is to focus on what we truly desire. I think a lot of people unconsciously focus on what they don't want a lot. And then they get emotionally involved with what they don't want a lot. That's why, the whole thing around, I'm an addict, this thing will own me. Okay, awesome. It's going to own you then, because that's what you're putting your focus on.
Preston, if someone is trying to experience and receive more abundance in their life, what is the first thing that they should do?
First thing would be to stop and breathe and get regulated. Now, regulated is sort of like an out there nervous system term, but literally most of humanity is in hypervigilance. And what I mean by that is they are bracing for something terrible to happen, or, deep into the past or the future, trying to get somewhere, but not here now, and not here in the purest, most loving, most in the pocket way. Right. And so if somebody came to me, which a lot of people do, and they want to start experiencing more abundance, I'm like, bro, the first place to start is to stop. Right. So like, I tell my clients all the time, and people ask me how I went from, a surf instructor to a multimillionaire. I'm like, yo, one of the biggest principles is elevation requires separation. And so you can't keep the old bullshit and the old life and produce and create the new one. And that's like moment by moment and over time.
Yeah, when I hear you say stop, breathe, and get regulated, right? Like I'm thinking of getting into the present moment. We're either deregulated because we're worried about something that is coming, or we're continuing to replay something that has already happened. So, is one of the things that would you say that keeps people from stepping into abundance is not living in the present moment?
No, it's not impossible to always be in the present moment, but it's how you're being in the future and how you're being in the past that counts and matters as well. And so awareness precedes choice, right? Like I got ridiculously high once, many years ago, and
Just
on
once.
yeah, exactly once on mushrooms. And I went to, this is when I lived in LA. I took a lot of mushrooms, and I went to the mall. I went to the mall, and it was a mall called Third Street Promenade. And I really wanted to like face off with the parts of me that were still chasing an external carrot, right? Because I teach and have been teaching for years that there's only two games ever happening: the inside out game and the outside in game. The outside in game says when I have the cars, the likes, when my dick's big enough, when so and so says I'm okay, when I get the compliments from my wife, when I'm done with porn, when I'm done with X, then I'll be happy. The inside out game says right here, right now, I am perfect, whole, and complete, but not finished. I'm a unique emanation of the Most High, and that thing has never and will never make a mistake. And therefore, all my needs are met, and I'm good now, right? And so I'm ridiculously blasted in a mall, and I'm walking, and I see this area where they have like those water fountains that shoot water up to music. And I go lean over the banister, and I see all of these koi fish. And I had this moment where I'm like, these fish think they have choice, right? They can swim to that side of the pond and that side of the pond, and to them they have choice because they're inside of a container that appears to have choices, right? And then I zoomed back out, and I'm like, bro, everybody walking around here, we think we have choice, but are we actually aware? Because you can't intervene in a world you can't see. You can't do jack shit about what's happening in your life until you bring an awareness to it, right? I know that you teach and support men through overcoming and being bigger than porn addiction and things of that nature. Bro, that's one of the biggest pieces. Because once you uncover that, which I have done, I haven't watched porn in 20 years, right? Once you have an awareness that we've been programmed and conditioned, that it makes us weak and watered down and dumbed down, that's why they're feeding us the porn, right? That's why it's readily available, right? So once you have an awareness of that, you can do something about it. And so a big part of my work and the abundance pillars is bringing awareness. Where am I? What am I operating from? What am I thinking? When I think about the future, am I thinking doom and gloom, lack, limitation, and scarcity? When I replay the past, am I playing out this victim story? Or am I looking at where I've come, how far I've come, how many times I've been knocked down and got back up and beat my chest and said, game on, right? So again, yes, it's presence, but even when I'm going into the past or going into the future, it's how I'm going in that matters the most.
Yeah, well, definitely, I want to circle back here and how we can kind of, from a tactical perspective, I want to maybe spend some time the philosophical side of this thing, and then maybe kind of get into the weeds here a little bit. But I love this conversation that you're kind of having here around choice, and you brought in the work that we do, right? And that's been a big pillar for us. And I think what's really enabled us to step into a space that just 5 years ago, I had no experience in coaching men around addiction recovery. I had my own kind of journey, but I saw something that was broken in the addiction space. And it's this belief that's taught from the 12 steps, right? And it's, a very successful program, but this belief that every day we have to step in and raise our hand and call ourselves an addict. And that's an attaching of an identity, right? Here I'm an addict and I'm powerless to this thing. And I see so many men fall into this trap that I'm a slave. I'm not in control of the trigger. I'm not in control of the urges. And the minute they realize that every single time they type up that little PH site, right, a choice has been made. Now, they don't see it when they're struggling with it, but if we could zoom out here a little bit. So I guess here, like what role does identity, because that's a big piece of kind of what I do, what role does identity play in our ability to step into abundance?
Oh man, it's one of the biggest. It is the biggest piece is who we say we are. Because who we say we are, we will spend the rest of our lives trying to prove consciously and unconsciously,
Who we say we are, we will spend the rest of our lives trying to prove consciously or unconsciously.
right? And so that was for me, right? Going back to, surf instructor making $36,000 a year. I had that identity. I had the identity of the broken one, of the dumb kid that was in special education. I had the identity of the person who had dyslexia and was less than everybody else. When I got into college, I was like, yo, I'm an imposter. They're going to find out. Right. And I took that same consciousness, that same identity into the next work and the next work and the work. And I brought myself everywhere I went until I started chipping away at the identity and asking myself, but where did I get this? Says who? Says who? Right. I'm gonna break something down. So in my workshops, I have peak performance workshops that my wife and I do that helps people recalibrate their nervous systems. And one of the things we teach on day one in the first couple hours is that there are 4 aspects of what it means to be human. So the first aspect is we are biological beings, right? We're physical beings. We have organs and systems and things occurring, right? The second aspect of what it means to be human is we are linguistic beings, which means we build worlds with our language. Without the distinction of door and doorknob, I couldn't get out of the room, right? All of this is in language, right? So the more language we have and the more distinctions, the easier it is for us to navigate life. The third aspect, and this is the one I want to spend the most time on, is we are social and historical beings born into beliefs and interpretations. And then the fourth, I'm going to go back to the third. The fourth is we are quantum beings, right? Which is a whole nother can of worms. Now I'm going to go back to number 3 because that's the one.
Quantum, real quick. I just want to add a caveat to quantum being energetic beings. Like, would that be kind of another way to say that?
Yes. So number 3, social and historical beings born into beliefs and interpretations. Okay. So I grew up in LA, born in Compton, raised in LA. One of the social and historical programmings, one of the beliefs that I was born into was Black people don't swim. So I grew up right next to the ocean and never got in, right? Was that mine or did I inherit that? I inherited it. So the moment I have awareness about what I inherited, I now have a choice in whether I want to keep it or not. So what did I do? In what was it? It was the summer of 2003. I walked past my neighbor's garage. I saw a surfboard. I said, "Can I use that?" I said, "Of course." Taught myself how to surf in Manhattan Beach. Fast forward, 7, 8 years later, I have a surf school, and I'm teaching people how to surf through spirituality. Now, again, that's just one. We've been programmed and conditioned right? I grew up probably like you did, hearing big boys don't cry, don't be a little pussy, don't be a little faggot, and all the other language. That's all conditioning, all programming. And so when certain things would occur, that programming from 0 to 7 would pop up and say, no, you don't do that. That's not inside of your identity, right? That's not how we roll. And now you add on, Jesus and Santa Claus and all these other things that are supposed to be perfect and white. I now have this whole other thing happening where I'm like, oh, I'm not like them. The Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, GI Joes, all the dope things that I love as a kid don't look like me. So there's just all this extra programming of like, you're not that person. And so our job, everybody's job, is to bring awareness to the programming that you had. My money blueprint was not mine. It was my dad's and his dad's and his dad's. How I viewed relationship was not mine. It was my mom's, her mom's, and her mom's. And so because it's the last thing I'll say, because my mom was so wounded by the masculine, she tried to produce and create and beat out the wild man inside of me because she didn't want her little boy to be like the parts of the masculine that hurt her. But you can't beat your biology. And so what happened? I created a mask. Here's the face I'll show you at home. Here's the good little Christian boy. And here's the killer. The killer is when you get outside. The good little Christian boy, as soon as I walk in the house. Whenever adults are around, yes, mommy, yes, please, thank you. So now I'm battling with that and religion and all the other stuff on top of it. And it's a recipe for disaster, right? So this is why I love what you do and I love what I do, because we help people take their lives back and actually choose what the fuck they really want.
Is there programming that can be done in those foundational years, 0 to 7, that can serve us in a positive way? And if so, what's the distinction? What's the separation between the two? You're giving a lot of clear examples, right? I think every single person listening to this will resonate with some of that, right? I can remember, I love my dad, amazing relationship with him today. I live a mile away. I get to see him regularly, right? But one thing I can remember hearing all the time growing up was shut up, don't talk, be quiet, right? I became very introverted, right? I became very built within. Like I had to shatter that, right? And now it's not a surprise or it is a surprise to many that I speak for a living, because I was the kid that never spoke. Now I make my entire life around the words that I get to speak on a daily basis. But that took some unpacking and healing for me. But that was a program, right? You're not supposed to talk. You're like, we don't want to hear what you have to say. I had to shatter that. But I believe that there was also some programming maybe from there that has carried me through success. So what's the distinction, right? How do we know if programming is serving us or holding us back?
Yeah, it's one question always is it effective? Is it useful? Right? Am I doing it or is it doing me? That's one of the bigger pieces. So in our work, people come into these workshops and we put them in high pressure situations. And then we say, okay, you see what you did there? You see how you got triggered? Did you do that? Or did it do you? Is that an automatic pilot kind of situation? Or did you purposely, right? Did you purposely go into fight and clinch up? Was that a conscious thought to go into flight or go into fawn and pretend like everything's okay? Because it's not that those things won't happen. Everybody has a nervous system. Everybody experiences some level of trauma at some point in their lives. And those nervous systems and that trauma play together and creates toxic shame, which most people live from. And a part of why the porn industry, the sex trafficking industry, and all the other stuff are fueled, right? Our work is, again, to take it back, right? I talk about this often. You can't disown that which you have never owned. And so you owning that, this shy guy thing, this quiet, stoic guy thing, which has gotten me women and X, Y, and Z and kept me safe in times where I could have got my ass kicked. That thing is not who I am. It's who I became. That is a very different thing. And then the question is, okay, so if this is who I became, do I want to keep it? And if I want to keep it, do I want to keep it for everything? Do I want to have one size fits all? Or do I want to have range as a man? Do I want to be the type of dude that can shed tears and hold his wife and his children and go to battle? Bro, I got flowers everywhere and guns in here, right? I got You're right. I got the whole situation in this motherfucker. I literally, people see me and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's Captain Nice Guy." I fight every day, bro. Literally, I do MMA and all kinds of stuff. It's range, right? That's the game.
I love that, man. I've shared this story a handful of times. The older audience will remember this, but I used to be on the Saturday morning men's group. Like we would meet every Saturday morning virtually via Zoom. It started around the pandemic time, so that's where it kind of birthed out of this virtual Zoom meetings. But we meet every Saturday, like clockwork, 7 a.m. And it was a Bible study group, and it was men of faith, and we just talk vulnerability and just realness and rawness. Dude, there was a point where for like 6 weeks straight, like I was going through a lot of personal stuff. I was crying every Saturday morning. I used to take this call on my way to the gym. And I can remember one Saturday getting off the call. I said, guys, in the next hour, I'm going to be probably one of the only men in the world that has cried and deadlifted 500 pounds before 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. So I resonate with that whole spectrum of what you just kind of shared there, right? And it was the ability for me to do that without judgment, without guilt, without shame, that enabled me to really step into, what people would maybe describe as like a purpose or calling or, my fullness as a man. So I love it. I'm resonating so much with this. And it's ringing back to the first question I answered you, right? It's like, what's the first thing we can do? Control the nervous system, right? Because things are going to happen. Are you going to react, which happens without thought, or are you going to pause, get control, and respond, right? I think it's Charles Swindoll said, life is 90% or 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond. And I think the response is a controlled behavior, where the reaction is kind of that innate, uncontrollable one. So circling back though, I think maybe defining abundance in your language and terms could be valuable for the audience here, because I think a lot of people think abundance, it's the cars, the watches, the bank account, the material possessions, right? But I know that's not what we're speaking to here. So let's define abundance and then maybe kind of go deeper into some of the levels and pillars and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. For me, abundance simply is living from the overflow across the board, right? The overflow, because when it comes to relationships, one pillar, slash community, I would put that all in one, right? The overflow, relationships and community, the overflow when it comes to my health and body, the overflow when it comes to spirituality, and the overflow when it comes to living inside of my purpose and like actually going after something. To me, um, abundance isn't a number; it's a state. It's an energetic state that we live from, and you know, um, I've had moments in church where I've caught the Holy Ghost, and I've been in such a state of knowing and like tapped inness. And I've had those same states on LSD at Burning Man, and I've had those same states in meditation. I've had those same states in looking at the butterflies right outside of my house right here, and tickling and kissing my kids. And like the point is, and the game is to find the face of God in everything, right? Because if you're looking for the face of God in everything, everything will look back at you through that lens. And so then it becomes this big beautiful space, right? I see people often who are very, very down and out, and they'll come to me and they'll share something. I had a client here the other day at the house, and she was sharing something really heavy, and I was like, I was smiling with my eyes, and she was like, why are you so happy? And I said, there's a difference between the facts and the truth. And my job is to know the truth, right? What you're telling me is facts, right? I have this disease and I'm going through this thing. And like, that's a local view. My job as a coach is to take the global view. My job as a spiritual being is to pull high enough above all of it to see what's actually going on and to know the truth about it, which for me is I serve a God that has never and will never make a mistake. And so some of the worst things that have happened to me also happened for me. And I can allow myself to be a victim, right? I was sexually abused as a child by a family friend. And I was a victim in that moment. And it was a gift. It was a gift because when I sit and I coach and I work with people and their nervous systems, I'm not guessing what it feels like. to be in that much pain, to suffer, to think you're dirty, to hide it. I almost lost my marriage a couple years ago. That was a gift. First of all, our marriage is 10 times better than it is before that because of it. So I don't talk from this high horse space of philosophical stuff. I'm living this work, bro, living it all the time. And life is always going to kick everybody in the balls. The question is how are you going to respond? And can you see the bigger picture inside of it?
It's a difference between the facts and the truth. I love that, and I want to tease it apart though a little bit because I didn't think that we were going to go here, but almost there's a you mentioned kind of the weaponization of porn. You know, it's weakening our men here. You know, we look across kind of what's happening in society, right? You know, we've seen a demasculation of men, we've seen a rise in masculine women, but we've also seen a confusion of sexuality. And I think that there's certain things that are feeding that. I think some people would maybe disagree that the facts are what's important and not your truth. So I'm trying to tease out the question here, and hopefully you're kind of following my train of thought here. Like, can we get into danger though? Like not following the facts and living in what some would define as like their truth. Like, how do we distinct their truth versus the truth?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I love this and let's go for it. So it's a both and conversation. I use the facts as feedback. I use the facts as a mirror, right? So I can look around my life and go, okay, uh, I can talk to the cows come home about, a better relationship, but what are the facts? The facts are X, right? I can talk to the cows come home about having my dream business or life, but what are the results? What's happening in my bank account? How do I feel spiritually? What's going on in my family? Do I have friends or do I have some bullshit fake social media stuff, right? So the facts matter to a degree. But if I associate with those, I give them my power. So anything that I place outside of me and give and I associate with, that thing now owns me. So my job is to notice, right? This is interesting. This is what's showing up. And go, the truth is that there's only one power, right? I'm gonna give you some philosophy here. This is my truth. My truth is that there's only one power, and it's like electricity. Electricity doesn't say, "Hey, do you follow Muhammad or Jesus, or have you jacked off to porn?" Right? The electricity says, "Do you can plug up your iPhone, you can plug up your computer, you can plug up a Tesla, or you can plug up a city. The only question I have for you is, do you have the infrastructure to hold what you plug up to it?" So now let's go to God. Right? This is my same truth. Hitler used the same power that Gandhi did. That's my truth. The power is impersonal. The power doesn't say, well, this guy's a piece of crap. He's going to hurt some Jewish people. Or these people who want to enslave black people, they're going to use the Bible and they're going to butcher a verse to enslave, rape, and kill and pillage people for 400 years. Nope. The power says, bro, do you have the infrastructure? And if you do, then go for it. So then now let's circle back to like real life stuff. Now I have to look at the facts, the results of my life and go, the power, electricity, has supported me in creating these results. Me, though, I sit in between. I am the conduit. I built the body for these results. So if I built the body for these results, that means I could build the body for other results. I am not a victim. I am not an innocent bystander. I'm a part of this thing at some level, whether I was conscious or unconsciously aware of it. Right? So the question is how am I going to use it? Otherwise, I'm just a leaf in the wind. Right? And so awesome. Then just be that. But that's not an empowering way to live for me. Right? When I work with men, when I work with myself, I say, hey, thank you, God. Thank you for thoughts. Thank you for feelings. Thank you for eyes and feet and a heart that beats nonstop, no matter what I do to it. Thank you for all of that, and I will use it. I will bow my head. I will move my feet. I will get to fucking work, and we'll find out what happens from there. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, and I'm glad we went there and got some clarity. It's almost like the facts are going to be a precursor, but you're not going to live in the facts because then you're becoming a slave to it, right?
Correct.
It's like, but also at the same time, like you can't create a false truth if the facts don't support it.
Correct. Ish. Because okay, it's so when I said know the facts, but operate from the truth, I wasn't speaking from our personality's truth. I'm speaking from the electricity. So that's where I need it.
Electricity's truth.
Yes, right.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
speaking from like the overarching divine intelligence, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, source, divine intelligence, whatever it is for you. I'm speaking from, okay, something rotates this damn planet. I don't know what that thing is. Whatever it does, something grows the grass, right? There are laws, there are principles. This is what I write about in my book, by the way. Right? I explain that it's not luck, it's law. And that's what I had to really help and like work on. Like it's not that some people are more lucky. It's some people use the laws better than others. Some people understand that it's not personal, it's principle. And they use the principles to elevate their lives. Right? I see you've done that, Frank. You figured out what does and doesn't work, and then you just did more of what works. And then you got results.
Multiple times over. Like, that's what bodybuilding taught me. And I think one thing that these podcasts have done, I've been running the show for 5 years now. We've had experts in every possible realm, right? From abundance to entrepreneurship to business to psychology, neuroscience. It doesn't matter, right? But there are these universal laws of success. And then what I've done is I've taken those, and then how do we apply those universal laws of success to a transformational program centered around helping you break the perceived chains that this pornography addiction has on you? It's truly unique. And I believe that's what's enabled us to position ourselves in the marketplace, because we come at it from an angle that nobody else does. We're not the victim, to the addiction. We're not powerless to these things. It's no, we've held on to these limiting beliefs, right? Something has been pressed on to us from our early childhood. We maybe haven't seen this through the right lens. We focus in on our language here, right? Number two, I love the linguistic beings. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the word was God. And, I butcher that, but anyways, it's right there in my book, though, that God is the word. Like it is the logos at work. So I love all this. Let's get into, if we can, though, maybe some tactical principles on these laws of abundance. So you mentioned it there. It's like once you know the laws, you can then apply them. What are the laws? Like, is there a list here that we can kind of categorize and then pull that apart a little bit?
Absolutely. So, in my book, Spiritual Millionaire, I've created my own, I'll say, creative understandings of some of these universal laws. So the first one is the law of yes, which is God's a yes button. Um, it wants what you want. In the Bible, it says it's done unto you as you believe. Right? Okay. Well, cool. Right. I think Jesus said, "As I am lifted up, I draw all unto me." Right. So you lift up, moths to a flame. Right. So the law of yes. Second law is the law of rhythm and flow, and that just essentially states and opens up the idea that there are seasons for everything, right? And uh, when I'm on 4 acres here, and I've planted probably 150 different types of plants and trees here, even though there's like 1,000 already. And when I put that plant, let's call it a rose bush, when I put that in, I dig the hole and I put it in the ground, there's going to be a period where it needs to germinate and go into the darkness and grow roots down so that it can grow up. And a lot of times we don't create enough space to allow that to happen, and we don't savor what is occurring as it's occurring. A lot of people get so addicted to the outcome, right? Going back to the porn thing, right? It's like the moment you're trying to get to the nut, right? But like savoring and being with the current season in such a way that when the next season comes, you've laughed all your laugh, you've cried all your cry, you're living, right? An unhappy journey will never produce a happy ending. And so The second law, the law of rhythm and flow, is about just ease and grace, like actually letting it land. There's a law of attention and intention, which essentially states what you appreciate appreciates, what you focus on does expand. It expands in your mind, it expands in your field, in the body of your affairs, and so our job is to focus on what we truly desire, and I think a lot of people unconsciously focus on what they don't want a lot, and then they get emotionally involved with what they don't want a lot. That's why, the whole thing around, "I'm an addict, and this thing will own me." Okay, awesome. It's gonna own you then, right? Because that's what you're putting your focus on. Another one of the laws is the law of patterns and practices, slash the law of F around and find out. And for me, that's simply, it's our job to uh, set up habits that support what we say we want. It's our job to get into action, right? To bow our head and to move our feet, right? Faith without works is dead, right? To the works part, to mess around and find out what's on the other side, right? A lot of people adults will try something 3 times before they give up, while kids will, sit in front of a video game for 27 days until they figure it out. That's our job, right? Is to stay committed to the play and the mountaintop at the same exact time. I'll give you a few more, but because I'll save the some of the juice for the book. But another one of the laws is the law of the ant and the elephant, and this is essentially about um, the relativity of celebration. So, in the eyes of God, an ant and an elephant are exactly the same. And yet so many of us in our society are just chasing elephant moments. And we miss the ants. We miss the power of expanding and celebrating what is right here, right now. Um, Again, I have friends with private jets and all the things, really, really rich people, self included, right? I think what makes me wealthy and what makes me richer than most people is I don't miss the small moments, right? Like my kids, last night, I slept in their bed, right? And one of my sons was having a nightmare, and I had to get up with him and pat him and walk him around and reassure him. Most people would say, well, it's not awesome to wake up 6 times a night. It's not. And yet I find a way to make it beautiful, because there will be a day when I miss that. There'll be a day when I hope, when I wish they would let me tie their shoes, right? There'll be a day where I miss having to run down the hallway and help somebody change their clothes because they peed in the bed in the middle of the night, and like all that stuff. I don't miss it. Those are ant moments that are just as big in my consciousness. And that's the other piece, right? The body's a living library that stores everything we've ever been through. And there's 2 ways to heal some of what's going on in our bodies and our nervous system, right? So all the trauma and all the things we've ever been through, if we do not allow those things to complete themselves, it just becomes discharged energy in the body. So our job is to free that energy. One way to do it is to, and I have my clients do this all the time, is I have them set what we call joy alarms. So 3 to 5 times a day, there's an alarm that goes off in your phone. Every time the alarm goes off, you burst into spontaneous joy. The reason we do this is because it sends a signal from the brain to the body that there's something to celebrate. And we, at a cellular level, are just vibration in a space, right? If you take a microscope and we break you down and break you down and break you down, we're just going to find really nothing, just vibration, right? And so um, when someone intentionally plays and celebrates, the body gets freer and freer and freer, which creates energetic real estate, which means there's space for something else. A lot of times we want more, but there's no space for it to come in because we're so trapped, we're so stiff, right? How I got into this work, I had a heart condition come up. The heart condition came up at 25, I'm 44. It came up at 25 because I was so stressed out, so tight, and so much trauma was still trapped in my body that my body said, "Cool, we're gonna kill you. You're not gonna deal with this. We're gonna kill you." This has been happening since you were 13, bro. You're gonna have to deal with some of this stuff. And so the more I went in, you can go do inner child work and trauma work, which I've done, and or you can just do primal screams, burst of spontaneous joy, and free and open your body. Both ways will free the body. And that's one of the biggest pieces, right? You can't have what you want, but you may experience what you have. So, what am I having right now? Am I having spaciousness and freedom? Or am I having tightness and repression, right? It's the thing. And I know you work on this and work with guys on this. Some people, because I've had men's groups before, they'll come in and they'll say, I want to beat this or that. And I'll say, okay, we can't replace one addiction for another, right? Because then you're just a different kind of slave. The work is to free the body in such a way that you no longer even identify as a person who does that, right? It's not even in your field because you understand it enough and you've done enough work on the body. Mindset work is awesome, but it is incomplete if you do not work with the body.
I love that, man. And no, that's exactly what we do there. And yeah, guys, I don't want to get through all the laws here, but Spiritual Millionaire comes out September 1. You can get it at prestonsmiles.com/book. It's on pre-order right now. Make sure to connect with Preston there as well. So we'll have that link down there in the show notes for you guys. I want to come back here though to the first one, the law of yes. I love what you said there. God is a yes button. But I'm sure you would agree with this. He or it, or however you kind of, look at God or use language in and around that, can only be the yes button if you're asking the right questions and you know what it is that you want. So let's speak to the importance of setting and establishing a vision, because I think most people lack the vision of clarity of what they want in life. And that's why they stay stuck in this constant cycle, because they're not focused on where they're going, what they're trying to create. Like you said, they're focused on the things that have happened, the things that they don't have. So speak to vision. And then, how do you kind of frame this up in kind of your world and the work that you do?
Absolutely, man. Like, if I asked anybody, you, me, any of us, to rearrange the room that we're in right now, one of the first things we would do is form a mental picture of where we want the couch to go, where the microphone's going to go now, where the TV is going to be set up. You can't be what you can't see. So, vision is one of the most important pieces as well. And it goes with identity, right? Because I won't have a vision that's bigger than my identity. So, these things all play together, right? I tell people all the time, find models, find pictures of people who are even have some of what you want, and then allow yourself to emotionally rehearse, right? To mentally and emotionally rehearse yourself in any scenario. So I'm gonna give you another like hack that I do every day. So the moment I wake up, because the morning time is one of the clearest, purest times for all of us. We have the least amount of static on the line, the least amount of stress, the least amount of outside influence. And so the moment I have a single bit of conscious awareness, I instantly go to mentally and emotionally rehearsing what it is I want. And what I do is I'll empty out. So let's say I'm laying, like this morning I was laying with my son, and at I think it was like maybe 5:55 he woke up, right? The moment we wake up, I give him a kiss, he's going through his process. I sort of lay back and I just let myself go. And I open the space for mental pictures, words, anything. I just say, bring it, right? And whatever comes, I allow myself to be taken by it. So, for instance, um, there's this sort of like fluorescent bowling ball purple Lamborghini that I know I want at some point, right? And so that popped up this morning. And as soon as it popped up, I just let myself go with it. And I just felt the feelings and I allow myself to feel and like let the mental pictures and all of it to go. Because everything is vibration. And so in that moment, I'm being a vibrational match and allowing myself to get emotionally involved and entangled with the vibration of me in a Lamborghini, right? Then I let it go. Well, throughout the day, I have a mantra that I've been saying for the last probably 15 years, and it is I deserve, I allow, I receive. So throughout the day, whenever I find myself in some moment where I'm not tapped in, I'll repeat this over and over and over again until I'm tapped in again. I'll feel each one. I deserve. Breathing into that, letting it really land. I deserve. I allow. Right? And I let myself feel whatever's there. And I receive, and I'll repeat it over and over and over, just feeling the feelings, because everything happens in vibration. The better I feel internally, the better everything externally will feel. And eventually it will have to match. So, vision for your life, yes, it's still going to be limited. People ask me all the time, did you see yourself in this position? Not really. I saw myself in parts of it, but God outdid itself. Like, bro, I would have never orchestrated it this way. Right? Even the stuff that happened with my wife. You think I'd say, oh, yeah, almost blow up your marriage? Nope. I would never choose that ever consciously. Right? But God did its thing. It knew exactly what to do, how to set it up, and how to blow it up so that we could have the marriage we have now. So, vision to the degree that you can and let God do the rest.
I love that, man. I love that. Let's talk about making money though here, right? You got a book coming out, Spiritual Millionaire. You're very, financially I don't think you use the language financially free. I've heard you talk about that, like, because if you're attaching something outside of you, then you're not really free to it. But you have financial abundance, right? Like, you're going to have this Lamborghini one day. I believe that. I hear it and I see it happening in your life. So for the guys out there now that are resonating with a lot of this conversation, right? They've recognized all these things. Some of these things have really hit them, but they're like, I get it. Now I want to take these concepts though, and I want to become financially abundant and wealthy. What are the habits? What are the day-to-days? What do the rituals look like for somebody that's trying to create real financial abundance and success in their life? What are the key things on a day-to-day basis?
I'll break it down right here. So, from your personality, just decide and sort of let yourself swim in the idea of what's a someday goal, right? So, someday I'd like to X, right? Awesome. We just write that down. Then we go, okay, what's my 5-year goal, right? As it pertains to the someday goal. Then I write that down. Then I go, okay, what's my 1-year goal as it pertains to the 5-year goal, right? So, what is it going to take for me 1 year from right now to set myself up to experience the 5-year goal? And the 5-year goal, what is it going to take for me to get to the someday goal, right? So now we're at 1 year. Now I go, okay, what's the 6-month goal as it pertains to the 1-year goal? And if I did that in the next 6 months, I'd put myself in position to have what I wanted in the 1 year. Okay, awesome. Okay, what's the 3-month, 90-day sprint? What's the thing I could do in the next 90 days that would put me in position for the 6-month goal? Okay, got it. Awesome. Okay, what's the 1-month goal that would put me in position for the 90? You're tracking right here. And then I finally get to what's the 1-day goal. So every day I have a success list. Every single day I have a success list. There's only 3 things ever on that list. 3 things ever on that list. The 3 things that are on that list are things that are needle movers. They are the things that if I just messed up the whole day, but I only did those 3, game on. So, and all of that is dictated based on what the goal, right? So this house, right? This where I'm sitting in right now, there's 3 houses on this property. I in 2017 started putting myself in position for this house. I just got it. We only been here 1 year, right? So in 2017, I said, okay, the 5-year goal is to have a dream house that my kids, I want kids one day. I want the whole thing. I didn't have kids at that point. I want kids. I got my girl. I want her to be my wife, like all that stuff, right? Here's where I want to go. So I created something called CMB, Conscious Man Brotherhood, and we had this thing called Man Cave. I'm doing all kinds of work with guys and all this stuff. All that money that I was taking money off the top every time for this for the 5-year goal, right? Now, fast forward to 2019, right before the pandemic. We have this moment where we're like, all right, it's time to move to Austin. Okay. We want to buy a house. Cool. I got quite a bit because I've been um, doing what we call playing the long game. And that's what I want everybody to hear here. The number one thing I did is I played the long game. While everybody else was buying fancy cars and houses and all kind of shit, I was just holding and investing, holding and investing, taking some off the top, living not beneath my current status, but I just wasn't flexing on anybody at all, right? Because I had a goal that was bigger than the short-term, pleasure. I could find pleasure in other ways. So 2019 comes, we buy our first house. I start hanging out with these super big real estate dudes. I allow them, hear this, guys. I allow them, because proximity is actual power, right? You're in proximity with Frank Rich, and there's a power to it because you get to learn from people like myself and from him, right? I start hanging out with these super real estate tycoon guys here in Austin, and they start teaching me real estate. So 2019, we buy a house. 2020, I buy another one. 2021, I buy another one. 2022, I buy another one. 2023, I buy another one. And that's the one we're sitting in now. All of that was not set up on those days, in those years. They were set up starting in 2017. So I have a success list every day. 3 things that move the needle. What makes me money? What makes the biggest income and impact? Out of all the actions I could take every single day, what is the biggest income and biggest impact I could do? Those 3 things go on the list. After those 3 things are done, I'm in extra time. I can do whatever I want. I don't punish myself. I don't need to work 19-hour days. Who gives one crap about that, bro? I want to enjoy my kids. They're in the pool right now. When we get off of here, I'm going to run and go jump in the water, right? Because I've done my 3 things. Yeah, that's some of it.
I love that, man. We teach a very similar framework. We don't start with that someday goal. I like that though, and I'm sure that would probably be very similar to like a BHAG, right? Big, hairy, audacious goal. Like the thing that, like, if you could point at the thing and say, this is absolutely 100% what I want. It doesn't matter when it comes to this is what I'm aiming at. We go the 5-year, 1 year, and it's all predicated on becoming the man that is free of pornography, right? So we help these guys create that vision. Then you can step into the new identity. But without the vision, like you said, you're not going to be able to create the habits, the beliefs, the mindset, and all the things that require to embody that new identity. So we go 5 years, 1 year. We break it down into 3 months because that's the length of our program. We want to have something really tangible that's in alignment with all that. And then one thing we do as well, and I don't know if you've ever tied this into it as well, but it's creating the opposite, right? So we're creating that dream vision, and then we create the polarity of it. So now we're running towards something, right? So we had that kind of reward centric motivation that's pulling us towards this, but there's also that thing that we're running away from, right? Which is like the ultimate hell. Like if you don't succeed, this is where things compound in the opposite direction. And that's kind of the framework that we teach there as well. What's the, so 2-part question here. The one belief that all guys need to begin to embody and possess to create financial abundance, and then the number one skill set. So belief and skill sets. I love talking about skill sets because the belief and all the manifestation and the dreams, the vision boards are all good, but to have these needle movers, right? Preston has had to develop some skills: speaking, writing, looking at P&L sheets, running a business. So biggest belief, biggest skill set that a guy needs to begin to possess to step into financial abundance.
So here's the beautiful part, right? Success is not linear. It can look like a crazy diagram, right? It can be like
It usually does,
right? And then you're like, oh, and then I'm there, right? So I'm going to start backwards. The skill set is whatever is most exciting for you right now. Because when you follow your bliss, when you follow what's charming, that to me is the divine, the universe, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. That's it saying that way, right? If you're, because it doesn't, the goal, right? The goal is to be, the best Spanish guitar player in the world, right? You're like, okay, cool, but I'm also really excited about painting right now. When you paint and you play, you do both, right? Because the fruit doesn't belong to the tree, the fruit belongs to the ecosystem. So your job is not to try to control how the tree let go. It's just let go. Give the gift. Say yes. Say yes to your yes, and the universe will take care of it because the skill sets, right? I went to college and then I got an MFA in theater. And I got back to LA and I was like, I just wasted my time. What the hell did I go do theater for? Right? Colorado Shakespeare Festival and X, Y, and Z. Well, little did I know I was going to have a heart condition that shook me way off of the path I thought I was going down, and then create an entire career, which I'm living in right now, where I use that same skill set. This weekend, I will have 84 people in a hotel ballroom. I will not use microphones. I will fill up that entire space with a skill that I didn't know I needed back then. I was just following what was exciting for me at the time, right? So that's that. As far as belief, I think the number one belief is um, in. I'll say it like this: um, the seed contains the blueprint for the entire tree. The distinction and the difference between a tree that grows 1,000 feet in the air and provides shade and food and all the other stuff, and a tree that grows 1 feet, 2 feet, shrivels up and dies is not the seed, but the soil that it's planted in. So this is a two-part thing. Number one, the belief is in the seed. It's understanding that the God or universe, whatever you believe in, it never made a mistake, bro. You are not extra messed up. You are not unique in how jacked up your life has been. You are still perfect, whole, and complete. You are still a beautiful soul, homie. I promise you, no matter what you've done, I've done terrible things in this lifetime. I've had them done to me, and I've done them. I promise you. And look at me now, right? It's because I've believed that none of that happened in vain. That I'm not somehow more messed up than all of you guys. We're all fucked up, right? We all get our ass kicked. We all get punched in the face, right? So the belief is in the seed, understanding that whatever created us, we still don't know. We don't know what starts that engine called the heart. There's a moment where the heart is not beating. And then one moment later, it is. Can any of us explain what does that and why it chooses 3 p.m. over 6 p.m.? Right? We can't explain it. Science can't explain it. Nobody's got that figured out. That's called God. That's called something bigger than us. And whatever that thing was, it goes, hey, Jeff, Frank, Preston, Tommy, zoom, zoom. You got work to do, homie. Right? That. Believe in that. Every time that heart beats, that's a confirmation from the Most High saying it's on and popping. And then the last piece to that is understanding that we are born into community. You come from a womb straight to other humans. The humans you put yourself around matters, homie. Oh my God. I would never have this much real estate without having those friends that are just like, they have stupid amounts of real estate and money. And what it did for me was I went, oh, if these nerdy, awesome dudes can do this, so can I. Proximity. Those are the three things that I would want you to really let land in your body.
I love that, man. And you almost answered the last and final question without me teeing it up, but we'll get there too in a minute. But that was powerful. I mean, touching on the importance of community and the people that we surround ourselves with. We'll all regurgitate that quote, right? You're the byproduct of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But we know it. Very few people are intentional about acting it out. And I hate that I've had done this multiple times, but referring back to the curriculum and the work that we've done with men, there's an integral part within the first couple of weeks of our program that you're going to create this new identity. Once again, like, you're going to need the right type of people around you. We provide in a powerful community, but we also want you to have the community, the family, the extended family in your own life. And I think you've done some in-person workshops and you bring people to your place there as well. So as we wrap it up and drive it home, before we get to the last question, Preston, obviously we got the book coming out, Spiritual Millionaire, available September 1st. Check it out here today, though. You can pick it up on order. What else is kind of looking forward to, this year as we're literally kind of getting just into the second half? And where's the best place for the guys to maybe connect with you personally? Where do you kind of spend your time socially?
Absolutely, man. Thank you for asking, and also thank you for having me, and thank you everybody who made it this far. Like if you're listening to this right now, that says something about you, right? One of my biggest teachers is nature, and birds of a feather often flock together. Now, our birds may look different on the outside, right? I may have this sexy chocolate skin, and he's got that beautiful beard and those teddy bear eyes and all that stuff. But we are the same person, right? It's the same bird. We always find each other. And if you're listening to Frank Rich and you're listening to Preston Smiles, that means you're just like us. You're just on the path, doing your thing. You got a heart of gold. And so, thank you for that. And if you literally, one of the best things you could do, in my opinion, is get that book. Go to PrestonSmiles.com/book and get Spiritual Millionaire, because there's a lot of wisdom that I've dropped in that book. It's at Preston Smiles on anything, YouTube, Instagram, and podcasts. However, I'm just really proud, man. Every once in a while, you do something that you're like, yo, this is really good, like ridiculous. And this book is one of those things. And I just want to get into as many hands as possible. Um, and if you don't, I love you. I appreciate you. It's not easy being a man these days. And we've had to navigate a lot to get to this point, and good on you for finding people like Frank and doing your work.
Well, we appreciate you, brother. I mean, you've been open and vulnerable and willing to, go down some of these rabbit holes with me here today. And this was a very enjoyable and invaluable conversation. And the fact that you speak so highly of this book, knowing the resume that you've built for yourself in this space, says a lot about what you've put into it. So I encourage everybody out there to pick up the book. We linked it down there in the show notes for you guys, PrestonSmiles.com/book. Rate, review, share, do all that good stuff with today's episode as well. But Preston, we love to end the show here with the same and final question. Title of the show is called The Superhuman Life. I used to have this little kind of setup of what I thought a superhuman life was, but I've removed that from this part of the question. So as we bring today's conversation to a close, Mr. Preston Smiles, abundance coach, how would you define living a superhuman life?
That's easy, man. It's a life um, filled with love, right? And actually receiving love, giving and receiving love, operating from an attitude of gratitude. That is the most superhuman thing you could possibly do.
Amen. Guys, Preston Smiles, check out the book, link down there in the show notes. Rate, review, share this one across all the platforms. But we love you guys for sticking with us out here today. And we'll see you in the next one.